Welcome to a new video. Let's take a look at some new malicious compliance stories. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. The first story is called, "Sure, let's ruin this expensive electrical equipment completely." John works for a utility company that has a contract to install energy meters in domestic households across the country. His division covers an area with a population of about 2 million people. Every morning he looks at his little company iPad to see the list of jobs he has and goes off in his van to remove the old meters and install new ones. The company has set a very ambitious target for all households in the country to have these new meters by a certain date. As it goes with companies that do this kind of work, they regularly get audited, the employees' vans get checked for safety, the meters and equipment get double and triple checked, and so on. That fateful day was an internal audit for that locale. It was a beautiful April morning when all the engineers covering John's area turned up to have their vans and equipment inspected. There were many people and vans, and John had to wait a while for the internal auditor, Mark, to approach. He noticed that Mark left a trail of puzzled faces in his wake. "All right, mate," Mark said. "Can you just unload all the meters from your van and put them on the ground in front?" John said, looking at the April sky. "Really? I mean, it looks like it's going to rain." "Nah, it'll be fine." "No, really. The forecast this morning said there was going to be rain, and also the sky's looking a bit cloudy." "Look," Mark snapped. "I have loads of these to test while you guys are indoors being quizzed. Just do as I say and leave them on the ground." As he moved on to the next guy, John made incredulous eye contact with another engineer and they both shrugged as they started unloading the meters. Sure enough, as they sat in a conference room doing their knowledge and aptitude tests, it started pouring, like really coming down. A few minutes later Mark ran in, grabbed one guy and they went outside. John is not only a responsible person in general but also happens to like his job, so he spoke up. "Shouldn't we all go out there to help?" The manager in charge of the tests said tersely, "Mark only got that one guy." John shrugged. "All right." After they finished what they were doing, they went back outside. The hundreds of electrical meters were still on the ground and Mark was still running around, looking a little nervous. John called him over. "Mate, what are you doing? None of these are usable now." No, Mark said. "See, the ones that you put down upside down will still be fine." A few other engineers came over and stared. "Mark," John said, taking him by the shoulders. "These are all electrical meters. They are not waterproof. Literally none of them are usable now. Compliance would fire us if we even thought about putting them in a customer's home." "You do realize," another engineer said, "that because you insisted we dump our stuff out in the rain, no one in this area of 2 million people will have a meter to fit for at least the next 3 days?" As Mark looked around him, the reality of what he'd done dawned on him. John later described the color of his face to me as just pure gray. 6 months after John first told me this story, I asked him what happened to Mark. He said no one had heard of or from him again. The next story is called, "Classmate Asks Me to Help Him Cheat." I'm a high school freshman, and we had just finished our biology quiz and were trading papers to grade. I pull out my pen, but my classmate, whom I don't really like, stops and tells me, "Grade it with pencil." I'm catching on to his desire to cheat, but say that the pen is more aesthetic. He continues to insist, saying he'll pay me, and a plan forms in my head. I accept the bribe, $1, and pull out my pencil. The first two answers are wrong. I get my pencil and push it across the paper violently, ensuring that the pencil mark was thick and dark. I continue with the marks and checks, grinding the pencil lead across the paper every time. We finish grading the papers and hand them back. He furiously tries to erase, but the markings smudge, and the teacher sees what he's doing. She takes the quiz away, and he's left with sore arms from trying to erase. I ask for the money, but he claims he doesn't have any, as expected. The last story is called, "Sorry Boss, I Don't Speak Spanish." I work at a hotel as a night auditor, and this malicious compliance begins with a small bit of information I was told when I was initially hired for this position. When I interviewed for the position, and this is very important later on, I was told by the human resource lady that the hotel paid a bonus of $100 for each foreign language I spoke well enough to serve our guests. Management cleared my $100 for speaking English, after I passed through their evaluation period. My main language is Portuguese. At first, I was glad to be working in the night shift, mostly because my colleague then, Mr. Castillo, was from Guatemala. So whenever any guests that spoke Spanish showed up, he handled it, and in turn, I handled any English-speaking foreigners. Naturally, he did a lot more work since the number of Spanish-speaking guests we receive is significantly larger than our English-speaking ones. Meanwhile, Mr. Castillo was in the process of learning English and I had taken an interest in Spanish, so we helped each other out. Not long after, Mr. Castillo got himself a job paying several times over what the hotel did and sadly, left me. My new colleague, a newly promoted bellboy, didn't speak English, though he could understand some. And he didn't speak Spanish at all. In fact, he didn't even try to improve any of his language skills while I slowly kept improving my Spanish, trying to use more and more of it every day to serve our dear guests. As of the start of this month, I spoke to our front desk manager and asked him in plain Spanish what I have to do exactly to receive the $100 bonus for speaking Spanish. He was surprised but said nothing more, since the front desk got busy with checkouts and my shift was up. But a few days later, he mentioned he spoke to human resources and informed them that I was speaking Spanish well enough to receive my bonus. And now he was just waiting to hear back from them. A few days later, the human resource lady asked me what size shirt I wore, since they were going to be ordering new uniforms in the coming weeks. I took the opportunity to ask her about my bonus for Spanish, and she mentioned they were talking with our director about it. A day later, she informed me they wouldn't be paying me the bonus for a foreign language since it was on file that I was already receiving it. I replied I was receiving a bonus for English, not Spanish, and she said she would speak to the director again and within a few days, all would be made well. Now I'm not really in a hurry to get my bonus, but it would be nice if they had cleared it already, as it would show up in my next paycheck, but guess what? They didn't. Our director talked to human resources again, and my boss, and told them that, even though I am serving our dear Spanish-speaking guests in Spanish, I don't in fact speak Spanish. I'm far from fluent, but I can explain how the hotel works, direct guests to where they need to be, and assist them with what they need, be it finding a pharmacy at 3, getting a cab to go out and get drinks, or even hire an escort. But apparently it isn't good enough for our director, and my manager said he can't really afford to fight him on it. Okay, no big problem I guess, maybe we'll try again next year when I can speak a little better, I thought. However, the cruel and unforgiving gods of the hotel industry gave me the perfect opportunity to strike back. Earlier last week we received a large group of over 30 Spanish-speaking tourists, which in addition to our normal occupancy, meant we were effectively sold out for the week. Big groups are usually a minor inconvenience when you're checking them in, but an even bigger problem when checking them out. Especially if they're one person per room, which means you basically have a huge load of rooms to check out one by one, while an endless line forms in front of the front desk. More than 80 checkouts aren't unusual for our hotel on Friday mornings, but over 110 is a problem. Normally when the morning shift has a workload this big, our front desk manager comes in early to help. But he couldn't this time, since he took a personal day as his mother fell ill. That left our director with only one choice, to ask the night audit to stay late and help until our reservations people clocked in and could then replace us at the front desk. See, my colleague doesn't like staying late, especially since he works at a second job with his father in the afternoon, meaning he only has the morning and early afternoon to sleep. I don't like staying late on Fridays because of the number of checkouts, which means it'll be forever before you can take a breath, and even more so before you can leave. However, this time our director didn't even ask my colleague and instead told me to stay late because we would have a sizable workload and about a third of it would require someone that spoke Spanish, or it would slow down everything to a crawl. I told him that I would not be staying late that morning, and before I could get another word in, he started yammering about how I'm wrong and I should be more of a team player and that he would be very grateful for it. Wanting to get back to my sleep, I told him to ask my colleague, and he said he couldn't, that they needed me, and when I asked him why, he clearly stated, we need 2 Spanish speakers that morning to make sure everything goes okay with the checkouts. Not one for missing an opportunity to get payback, I replied, sorry boss, I don't speak Spanish. I turned off my phone and went back to sleep. After I woke up and turned my cell phone back on, I had several missing calls from the hotel and 2 missing calls from our front desk manager. I called back the hotel, but the afternoon shift picked up and they didn't know anything. So I called my manager's phone. He answered and asked me what was going on because the director was furious about me hanging up on him and that I was refusing to work. I explained to him the situation in regards to my bonus for speaking Spanish, and since the hotel was trying to hold out on me, I was going to withhold performance. Anyone who's ever worked customer service knows how much damage withholding performance can do, even if it just a little. In the end, my manager begged me to stay until our reservations people came in at 8. I agreed on the condition that I would not check out anyone who spoke Spanish. He reluctantly accepted and said he would back me up in what would happen after that. What happened was that the group came down for breakfast precisely at 6:40, finished at 7:10 give or take, and went back to their room to collect their belongings. At this time, the 2 front desk attendants of the morning shift had arrived, as well as our bellboy, plus, there were me and my colleague waiting to punch out and go. We had already started checking people out, and this day was particularly busy. We had 3 or 4 people waiting to be checked out, and it doesn't help that we only have 3 computers for 4 people to work with another computer for us to check the cameras. When 7:20 came up, my colleague quickly picked up his things and left, and I took over his spot. At this time, the first few people in the group started coming down, and they already had to wait since we were all checking out other people. A few minutes later, I got the first one, but I told them I couldn't check them out since I don't speak Spanish, and asked them to wait for my colleagues to become available. In the end, I ended up refusing service to 10 or so people, which started forming a line right in front of the front desk, which only grew since other guests assumed they were all in line to be checked out. My colleagues on the morning shift were not happy at all, the guests were less than satisfied, and when the first of our reservations people showed up at 8, I logged out, punched out and went home. By that time, there was a line of over 20 people waiting to be checked out by 2 overworked receptionists, only one of which spoke Spanish. In the ensuing shitstorm that happened, the hotel's director arrived at 8:30 in an attempt to minimize the anger of the human centipede who formed in the front desk, started chattering with the guests and otherwise trying to distract them so they would be less angry and avoid giving the hotel a poor review. I got a mild chewing out by my manager for poor work ethic instead of being written up. True to his word, he backed me up when the director called him and human resources for a meeting regarding my actions. You can't demand someone speaks a language that you know they don't, right? I still haven't got my bonus for speaking Spanish, and I let my manager know that I will not be speaking any Spanish while on the job until they give in and give me my hard-earned bonus. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider subscribing to the channel for more content. Let me know what you think about the stories in the comment section below. Also, let me know of any subreddits you would like to listen to. Currently working on a second channel for more content. Have a great day. Bye bye.